In the land of ochre, the hills rolled like green waves, and rivers shimmered under the sun. It was a place of beauty, but also of strict rules. People could only marry those from their own kind, farmers with farmers, nobles with nobles. Breaking this rule was unthinkable. But the heart doesn't follow rules. Amaka was the daughter of a powerful noble, Chief Obi. She lived in a grand house, surrounded by luxury, but her life was not her own. Every step, every word was planned for her. One day, she would marry a nobleman, chosen by her father, to make their family stronger. Uche was the son of a blacksmith. His hands were rough from shaping metal, but his heart was soft and full of dreams. He wanted more than the life he had, a life filled with work and duty. One evening, as the sun set, their worlds collided. Amaka had wandered from her family's party to the river, seeking peace. Uche was walking home from his forge, his thoughts elsewhere, when he saw her. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, breaking the silence. She turned, startled, but then smiled. "And you shouldn't talk to someone like me," she teased. They laughed, and in that moment, something began. A spark, a connection, something neither could explain. From that day, Amaka and Uche found ways to meet in secret. By the river, under the moonlight, they talked about everything, her life of rules, his dreams of freedom. They grew closer with each meeting. "I wish we could run away," Uche said one night, his voice filled with longing. "Where would we go?" Amaka asked, though her heart raced at the thought. "Anywhere but here," he said. "A place where we can be free." But they both knew ochre's rules were unbreakable. Their love was beautiful, but it was dangerous. Their secret didn't last. One night, a servant saw them together and reported it to Chief Obi. The next morning, Amaka was summoned to her father's study. "What is this I hear about you and a blacksmith's son?" he thundered. His face was red with fury. "Father, I love him," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "You will forget this nonsense," he snapped. "You are to marry a nobleman, as you were born to do." Amaka was locked in her room, forbidden from leaving. Uche was warned to stay away, or face the wrath of the noble family. But love, once started, is not so easily stopped. Desperate, Amaka and Uche made a plan. They would meet at the old stone bridge at midnight and run away together. Uche waited at the bridge, his heart racing with both fear and hope. But Amaka never came. Her father's guards had caught her trying to leave and dragged her back to the manor. She cried and begged, but it was no use. Uche, realizing something was wrong, fled into the forest, knowing he couldn't risk being caught. Amaka was forced to marry a man she didn't love. Her life became one of wealth and duty, but her heart was always with Uche. She often stood by her window, looking out at the river, remembering their secret meetings. Uche, unable to return home, became a wanderer. He traveled across ochre, making tools and weapons to survive. But no matter where he went, he carried Amaka in his heart. Every river reminded him of her, every sunset of her laughter. The years after their separation were lonely for both Amaka and Uche. Amaka, now the wife of a cold and distant nobleman, spent her days in silence. Her husband rarely spoke to her except to remind her of her duties. She often looked out of the tall windows of her grand home, staring at the riverbank where she had once been free. Uche wandered from village to village, working as a blacksmith for food and shelter. His hands were busy, but his heart was heavy. No matter where he went, he couldn't stop thinking about Amoka, her laughter, her smile, the way her hand felt in his. One day, news spread across Oka land. There was unrest in the land. The common people, tired of being ruled by strict laws and nobles, had begun to speak of change. Uche listened closely to these whispers. For the first time in years, hope sparked in his heart. What if the world could change, he thought. What if love could be free? In her quiet home, Amoka heard a sound on her window. She curiously went to check. It was Uche. Her hands shook as she opened the window so he can sneak in. I can't take this anymore, meet me by the river tomorrow night. He was gone again. Everything happened so fast. Was that really my own Uche, she asked. She knew it was dangerous. If her husband or the guards found out, the punishment would be harsh. But she didn't care. She had lived in a cage long enough. At midnight, Amoka slipped out of her home, her steps silent as the night. When she reached the river, she saw a figure waiting in the moonlight. Uche, she whispered. He turned, and for a moment, they just stared at each other. Then he ran to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. I thought I'd lost you forever, he said, his voice breaking. So did I, she replied, tears streaming down her face. They talked for hours under the stars, sharing their pain and dreams. Uche told her about the unrest in the land and the possibility of a new life. If the people rise, the rules could fall, he said. We could be free, Amoka. We could leave this place together. Amoka's heart swelled with hope, but fear lingered. What if we are caught? She asked. Then we fight, Uche said firmly. For us. For love. Uche joined the growing rebellion, using his skills to forge weapons for the cause. Amoka secretly helped, slipping messages and supplies to the rebels. The people of Oka land began to rise, demanding an end to the old ways. It was dangerous, but they were no longer afraid. For the first time, their love felt like a weapon, not a weakness. After months of struggle, the rebellion succeeded. The old rulers, including Amoka's husband, were overthrown. A new council was formed, one that promised freedom for all, including the freedom to love. On the first day of the new rule, Amoka and Uche stood together by the river where their love began. This time, there was no fear, no hiding. They were free. In the years that followed, Amoka and Uche built a simple life together. It wasn't the grand life of a noble or the hard life of a blacksmith. It was something better, a life filled with love, laughter, and freedom. Their story became a symbol of hope for all of Oka land. They had proved that love, no matter how forbidden, could change the world.